IC-8 Small Aperture IOL Midpoint Refraction Procedure. I'm Dr. Corina and I'm an assistant professor at the Southern California College of Optometry at Marshall B. Ketchum University in Fullerton, California. The IC-8 IOL uses a small aperture to extend clear focus across a continuous range of around 3 diopters. Due to this unique method of action, current automated refraction devices may return unreliable results as the IC-8 IOL has no specific focal point. So it is important to use a technique such as midpoint or red-green refraction to accurately determine the eye's true refraction. In this video, I will take you through a step-by-step approach for using a midpoint refraction technique to determine the refraction of an eye implanted with an IC-8 Small Aperture IOL. To learn about how to use the red-green refraction technique for the IC-8 IOL, please see my other videos on this method on the AcuFocus University website. Refractions can be more challenging in the IC-8 IOL eye because the extended depth of focus provided by the small apertures in these patients will tolerate a larger range of introduced lenses without experiencing blur. AcuFocus has developed a technique termed a midpoint refraction, which provides more consistent results with small aperture technologies. This technique is actually very similar to the technique we use for negative relative accommodation, positive relative accommodation, or as we typically call it, NRA, PRA, in near testing, but is being done with a distant target. Alternatively, a red-green balance test can be used to determine the refractive endpoint. The most important things to remember when performing this procedure are: 1. Start with a good manifest refraction. 2. Start with a target which is 2 lines above the patient's acuity threshold. 3. Add plus to blur and note the number of clicks. 4. Return to the starting manifest refraction. 5. Add minus to blur and note the number of clicks. And finally, 6. Calculate the number of clicks needed to get to the midpoint and add these to the most minus point where you ended the previous step. You will start with a normal manifest refraction and note the best corrected visual acuity. Then you'll display optotypes that are 2 lines above those at best corrected vision. For example, if a patient's best corrected visual acuity is 20/20, you'll put 20/30 on the chart. You will add plus lenses in quarter diopter steps to the manifest refraction and until it is blurred for the patient, and count the number of clicks. Of course, each quarter diopter step is considered a click. Start by telling the patient the letters will begin to get worse now and ask them to let you know as soon as they can't identify the letters. Now go back to the initial refraction and add minus power in quarter diopter steps until you reach the blur point for the patient. Again, record the number of clicks. At this point, leave this power in the phoropter. Again, ask the patient when they can no longer identify the letters. Finally, you will end up with the most minus refraction and the patient will no longer be able to identify any letters. At the end of these steps, I have 2 numbers to work with: the number of clicks for both the positive and negative direction of blur. And we will use these to determine how the sphere power of the manifest refraction should be adjusted. To determine the midpoint, you're going to look for the power that is centered between the most plus number of positive clicks and the most minus number of negative clicks from your manifest sphere. 1. Add the number of plus clicks to the number of minus clicks and divide by 2. If you come up with a fraction, then round up to the next whole number. 2. Take this number of clicks and add it back to the maximum minus sphere power you have in the phoropter by going in the plus direction. 3. The resultant sphere power is your midpoint refraction sphere, while the cylinder power remains unchanged. What I'm showing here is a visual representation of what we just did so that you can visualize the technique in a different way. So for this example, in step 1, we have an initial manifest refraction of +1, -75, axis 90. In step 2, you add plus lenses to blur, and in this case we have 2 clicks in the plus direction. For step 3, we are now going from the manifest refraction point minus lenses to blur, 7 clicks in the minus direction. Step 4, at this point, it took a total of 9 clicks from the top to the bottom to arrive at that minus 0.75 lens. 9 clicks divided by 2 is going to give me 4.5 clicks. Now you can't have a half step, so you have to round up to the most plus, which will be 5 clicks. So in step 5, we take the 5 clicks and we add them back in to reach the midpoint. So 5 clicks is going to give me plus half, minus 75, axis 90. I've demonstrated the midpoint refraction method for use with a small aperture optic, which is very similar to the negative relative accommodation, positive relative accommodation, or NRA-PRA method we use for near testing. I'd like you to remember the following steps when performing this procedure for the IC-8 IOL eye. 1. Start with a good manifest refraction. 2. Start with a target which is 2 lines above the patient's acuity threshold. 3. Add plus to blur and note the number of clicks. 4. Return to the starting manifest refraction. 5. Add minus to blur and note the total number of clicks. And 6. Finally, calculate the number of clicks needed to get to the midpoint. Add these to the most minus power where you ended the previous step on the phoropter. Thank you.